Okay, thank you guys. We appreciate your attendance today. I'm Bree Kruger. I'm going to be hosting and kind of kicking things off today for our Procorem webinar. We're going to be talking about tenant portal basics. This is a training session that we're hosting. It's a small kind of subcategory of training that if you attended in January, we hosted a larger compliance tenant event portal training. So this is just kind of the first chapter of that larger training that we hosted, and we will be continuing to host basically bite-sized chunks of that training throughout the next few weeks. So please stay tuned for that. Again, I'm Bree. I'm going to be your presenter, and then I'm joined by Jim Paris, who's our trainer today. We're going to have a short introduction, and then I'm going to hand it right off to Jim to cover that training on tenant portal basics. For those who might be new to ProLink, we are a technology provider in the affordable housing industry. We've been building systems for our local and state housing finance agencies, tax credit syndicators, and investors and developers for many years. Procorem is one of the products that we provide to those agencies, and it has developed over the years into a very robust tool that has many different use cases for our property managers, owner agents, and developers as well. So certainly something that's expanded over the years as it has facilitated that collaboration between those parties and the regulators and state agencies. So we really pride ourselves on building holistic tools to comprehensively manage the full deal life cycle for LIHTC programs and other programs as well. So, from that origination stage all the way through compliance monitoring. And also, really, our goal is to support all the different parties who are contributing to those deals. So our owner agents and developers, we kind of started our business at the top supporting those kind of the allocators where the money kind of comes from, and as that's trickled down, so is our product offering as well, and we're getting to the point where we're really refining the support of those parties and looking forward to offering additional services and software to support those groups. Our team are made up of technology, providers, but with a lot of industry experience. We live and breathe affordable housing is all we do. So certainly have great expertise in this area. Our customer support staff is engaged directly with our clients and their clients on compliance issues and really anything else that might come up in that collaboration setting on Procorem through that deal lifecycle. We've been a part of that and walked with our clients through that process. We're eager to get even more involved over time. So that's kind of where I will leave it. Jim at the end is going to cover some of the services that we provide currently for compliance to owner agents. So if you're looking for additional assistance during this kind of busy season and often deadline sensitive around this time for many of our agencies going through tenant event submission, please stick around and listen to that at the end. Other than that, I'm going to just hand it right off to Jim to get us started on our training.
Thank you, Bree. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen.
I can see it. Cool, good to go.
So today we're going to be going through kind of like the first steps of getting into Procorem and getting into the tenant portal. And then at the end here, I'm going to do a demo of that tenant XML file upload and the tenant event entries within Procorem. So first of all, we have to start with getting invited to Procorem by the housing finance agency in your state, and then creating your account and accessing Procorem itself. So when you're added to a work center, this would typically be done by the housing finance agency or by a colleague of yours looking to get your help working on this property. You will get an email here. It will direct you to sign up for an account on Procorem if you do not already have one. You'll need to create an account with the email address where you're invited to, and it'll direct you to the sign up page via this link in the email. And if you don't receive an invite, you should verify that your IT department has not marked our domain as spam, or you could just check your spam folder. Maybe it just went there because you've never received an email from procorem.com before. So if you don't receive an invite, just go through those steps to make sure that it did not get sent to somewhere in your inbox it should not have gone. Once you've created an account in Procorem and you receive the invite to another work center, so maybe you're on a couple work centers, you can click on the View Work Center button down on the bottom, and it'll direct you right to that new work center you were invited to. When you're signing up, this is pretty straightforward. Like most other websites where you have to create an account, it'll ask you for your name, your email address, and a password. And work centers you're invited to are tied to that email address you got the invite from. So make sure that you use the same email address that you got the invite from. You have to create your password, and you have to agree to the terms and conditions, and then you can sign up for an account. And once you sign up for an account, you'll see this screen, and on the left, it will show you whose account you're invited to. So you have the housing finance agency that invited you to this account, and you're going to see the work centers below. So these would be the properties that you have been invited to collaborate with the housing finance agency on. So the properties in your portfolio where you would now need to submit information to the housing finance agency through. And you'll be able to see the other collaborators here on the right. So maybe they're your colleagues that are helping you out with this process, or they're the folks over at the housing finance agency who are going to be expecting this data from you. And you will get email notifications if somebody uploads a file, posts, or does some other activity in the Procorem Work Center. You can choose the option to not get those emails every time and just do a daily digest, or you can completely get rid of email notifications altogether if that's what you prefer. If you prefer to just go into Procorem often enough to where you don't need those notifications, that's up to you. This kind of just reiterates where you can find the different properties. So if you're working on multiple properties, let's say you oversee multiple properties within your portfolio, it will break those out under the housing finance agency's row here on the sidebar menu. And if you go to your account at the bottom with that little gear wheel, it'll show you all the different work centers you're on. So if you're on more than just a few and you want to see the whole list, you would go to account there at the bottom. And if you don't have access to a work center that you need access to, you can contact the agency to request access to that. Or if you know one of your colleagues is on that, you can see if they can invite you as well. So accessing the tenant portal, this is the big one. And I'm going to go through a few slides on this, but really at the end of these slides, I'm going to get into kind of a live demo of accessing that tenant portal and submitting that data to the state agency. So you're going to go to your desired work center, of course. And then within the work center, you're going to see files, posts, tasks, calendar activity links. In order to submit your tenant events, you're going to go to the tenant events portal here on the left at the bottom. That's going to take you to the area where you're able to access, we call it an app. It's a tenant events app within Procorem, within that work center. Some agencies name this slightly different. So it could say something like tenant event portal, unit status report, tenant events, but it will be something similar that makes sense. And it will be kind of towards the bottom of that menu on the left. And once you're there, you're going to see all your years. So you can go to the appropriate year. And when you click view events, it's going to take you to the area where you can either view the events that you've already entered, or you can go ahead and start entering those events if you haven't already. This kind of just gives you a visual of how the tenant portal works and what the process is between you and the HFA, and kind of why the Procorem portal exists in the first place. So this is meant for you to provide property data to the agency through Procorem. And you can upload your owner certification and required files to Procorem in the files section. And the agency may have also built out tasks for you to instruct you on how to upload those documents. And then the next part is going to be submitting the tenant events through the tenant portal. That's going to be the main topic of my demo today. And if you do have a property management system, you're going to be using an XML tenant file upload, and I'm going to be showing you guys that today. And if you don't have a property management system, maybe you have a small property with only a couple affordable units, you can do a manual, you can manually enter the tenant events by keying them in within the tenant portal. And I'll show you that too today. And once you import or enter that data, you'll do something called validation. So our system, it will check for anything within that submission that doesn't really make sense. So let's say you have the same tenant in 2021 that you had in 2020, but it's marked as a move-in. It'll point weird anomalies like that out to make sure that your file is ready and good to go. It'll say, hey, double check this, maybe something's off with this one. And once kind of all those errors are corrected, you'll be able to go ahead and submit your data. This just kind of gives you a good visual illustration of that process from start to finish. And now this is going to show you some screenshots of submitting your tenant events in the tenant portal. And once I get through this, I'll show you a live demo of that as well. So as I mentioned before, there's two different ways to enter tenant events. You can do an XML import. So if you're using some kind of property management software that you can pull an XML file out of, this makes the process a lot simpler, especially if your property has a lot of units, more than a couple units. You can do an import here, so you're not having to manually key in 10, 20, 30, 40 units within the tenant portal. Again, you do have the option of manual entry. If you do not have any kind of record keeping or property management system that pulls out an XML. And then this lists compliance periods down here, and it shows you kind of the status of each of these compliance periods. So, you know, if, let's say I want to go back to last year, I can actually view last year's tenant event submissions. If it's already been submitted, of course, I can't go ahead and change it and resubmit it, especially if the compliance period's over, but I can go back and review past year's tenant events. This is where I would go to import those events and validate those events. This is what that screen will look like. And I'll show you that in my live demo coming up here soon. And whenever you see this yellow background with text on it, that's going to be really important for you, because that's going to give you really specific instructions on how that screen works and what you need to do on that screen. I mean, you can see this one has a lot of different information on average income and some updates there. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to transition into my live demo of the tenant portal. Can everybody see my screen here, my internet browser? Bree, let me know.
Yeah, you're good.
Cool, cool. So this is my Garden Court Apartments property. I am Paula, the property manager, and the agency staff here, Eileen Jones, let's say, invited me to this work center. So you can see I'm in files right now. So this is where I would submit tenant file, like different files, like my tenant income certification if they wanted me to put it in this folder. But as I mentioned before, your tenant income certification is going to be down here at the bottom. So this is where I would view my compliance periods and view my tenant events and upload those tenant events to the state agency. So if I go to view events on 2021, you can go here, and what I can do is I can, let's say I do have a file. I can go ahead, I can import my tenant events. Upload that. And depending on how large your file is, this could take a minute or two. Just be patient with it. Because it can be pulling in a lot of data. It's also kind of looking at this data and figuring out how to reflect it in the system. It will automatically refresh until the upload does get completed. Again, it does take a minute. I've had people reach out to me and say, "Hey, Jim, it's not working," and then we go back to this. I tell them, "Hey, maybe wait 30 to 60 more seconds, and it gets done." So I just uploaded my file. So I want to go back to my 2021 units. I want to go ahead and validate that file. So that file has populated all of these different buildings and units for me for the year of 2021. So if I go to tenant event validation, what this is going to do is it's going to point out any anomalies, anything that doesn't look right on the file. Let's say my example before, I marked somebody as a move-in, but they lived there the year prior. So see, there's no move out, but there's a move in. So that's a little bit weird. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at unit 292 and see what's going on. Okay, so I've got Heather Bender here. She was there prior to this. So this is not a move in. This is going to be a recertification. So I go ahead, I correct that error. And sometimes you'll have a few different errors and you just go back to that unit and fix those. The system will be pretty specific for you on what the actual error is. So now I'm going to try to validate my tenant events again. See, now I've passed. The tenant events make sense. The XML file makes sense. Everything I put in there makes sense. But one thing I'll show you, if I want to go back to the compliance period, let's say I don't have an XML file, I can actually go in here and just create event and create different or manually key in different events for the different buildings and units. So let's say I want to go in here. I want to add another tenant event for 2022 for Wanda Hill. I'm going to say she moved out. Let's say she moved out on October 1st, 2022, and it's a low income unit. Her total household income was 20,000. I can go ahead and I can add this event right here. I'm actually going to make it 2021. So you don't necessarily need that XML file to submit these events. It does make it easier, especially if you have more than 20 or 30 units. It's a lot easier and a lot more streamlined of a process to use the XML file, especially once you get used to that validation process. Once you get used to your property management system and pulling it out of there, it's a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot faster to do it that way than the manual entry. But again, if you're a smaller property, or if you're a property with only a few low-income units, sometimes it makes a little bit more sense to do it manually. But we do pretty much most of the time recommend doing the XML file if that's possible for you. I'm going to go back to the presentation really quick for you here. So I'm going to wrap up today's webinar just by kind of recapping the compliance services that we are offering. We are doing these trainings for you for free throughout the year. We're going to have more webinars in the future. There's going to be a webinar on AIT that we're going to be doing here in a couple weeks. And it's going to be a training in relation to the tenant portal and how AIT affects that, and how to deal with some of those new rules. But we are also offering services to owner agents in addition to our training. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me. A little bit of overview of what it includes is you'll have your own Procorem account for your organization, and what it'll kind of enable you to do is collect those tenant documents and those tenant files in your own Procorem account. So rather than having a filing cabinet in your office that you have to kind of sift through if the state ever comes to you and asks for more specific, more extensive documentation on your tenants, you can actually have your own Procorem Work Center set up with all of those files in there electronically, and you can just add the agency as a collaborator to come in and get those documents. We're also going to work with you to make sure that you do have the correct documentation depending on what types of units and what programs are involved with your tenants. So we'll be able to help you set up a task workflow, almost like a TurboTax checklist, but specifically for each type of program, telling you, hey, I have a recertification. I need this document, this document, this document for this tenant in a light tech unit or a tenant in a home unit. And we will also help you. We'll get more hands-on with you, kind of doing what I did here, but more hands-on one-on-one with you, helping you take that tenant file that you have and making sure it gets uploaded correctly. So that's just a little bit of an overview of the more hands-on services that we are offering beyond these trainings. And really, we think we're in a good position to not only train you here today and on our future webinars, but to help you with that process if you choose to approach us for additional services, because we've been working in affordable housing in total for I would say a little bit over 20 years or almost 20 years. And we've been supporting compliance specifically for our HFA customers for a little bit over 10 years. We are an active member and contributor to the NAMA XML standards program. So that is the organization that helps dictate the standard for that XML file that is being generated by the property management systems and is being processed by Procorem's tenant portal. We are working with 17 state agencies, and we work with some organizations on the private sector side as well. So we think we've got a really good background here to come in and offer you some more hands-on help if that's something you're ever interested in. Our next webinar is going to be in a couple weeks. It's going to be on March 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I will also be on it. This will cover average income test unit designations in the tenant portal. So we're going to take this to a little bit of a next level. We're going to get a little bit deeper into how to use the tenant portal, and we're going to help you kind of figure out some of these new rules when it comes to average income test. And again, as I mentioned, I'm Jim Paris. I'm the trainer here for the tenant portal, also the sales engineer as well. So if you do decide you have any interest in getting some more help hands-on with your compliance program, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, Jim. Just a reminder as well, if you have participated in previous trainings that we've held and you need the recordings or would like the recordings for those, please reach out to us. you can reach out to Jen or use the information on this screen, and we can send you those previous recordings as well, which includes, you know, these smaller subjects, but then also we have our larger 2-hour training that was kind of a comprehensive look at the tenant event portal if you need that information sooner than later from start to finish. So keep that in mind, and we'll see you on our next webinar. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And please provide feedback to that email as well if there's anything you would like to see us cover. Have a good day.